A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I am Chamberlain Uso.
From Abuja, good morning. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
And from Lagos, just to remind you, it's October 20, 2022. It's a Thursday morning. I'm Makinde. Good morning and welcome.
Significant date. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Well, the president signed this startup bill yesterday, and quite a number of highlights, particularly on that one. I mean, yes, we were reminded that that ICT sector contributes 18.42% to the GDP, but the bill gives so many innovators looking forward to that particular bill, its operations, now an act. So they're looking to see how they could leverage on that and ensure that they just get that path. You know, they've always clamored for an enabling environment such that they could thrive, basically, ensure that, you know, when it has to do with creativity, it's a global village, actually. So they're competing with their counterparts globally. And so our laws have also got to be, if not comparable or a little better, but at least at par in terms of the kind of environment that they have to thrive. Because these days, so many remote jobs, I tell you, a lot of young people can actually do from wherever they are across the world. And it'll be interesting if you recognize that, and perhaps that's what this bill is trying to do. But one interesting part that just got me looking at that again was that part where the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy did say that there's going to be this I think they call it Presidential Council on Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is going to be chaired by the President, and then the VP will serve as the Vice Chairman. Now, this council will have membership from the government and private sector, and there will be representatives from the academia. Now, under the chairmanship of the president, it will help curb this, guess what, incessant harassment of youths by the police with their laptops. They always refer to them, this tag or suspicion of Yahoo boys. So this is an interesting part that I like to see how this will happen. But it's quite interesting to see that at least that environment, that encouragement is given to a lot of young people to go out there and then thrive. You know, just soar, just do whatever you can, achieve as much as you can to boost the economy.
You know, one of the significant things that IO started with is today's date, 2020, as the 20th of October 2022. Now almost 2 years since the NSAS protest went, will I say, well, they were disrupted violently, and we saw what the aftermath of that was around the country. In many parts of the country, we saw just what happened. And you know how the NSAS protest started. It was about the harassment, bullying, and in fact sometimes outright, well, extortion. I'm looking for the right words now. Intimidation of Nigeria's young populace, especially those within the tech startup system, who were generally perceived to just be Yahoo people, by people who didn't understand what or who they were about, and there was a pushback, a huge pushback. That were not Yahoo boys. We are another group of people whom you should be proud of. There were many aspects to the NSAS protest. By that I mean that there are many people who were affected differently, especially when you listen to what has happened within the many judicial panel of inquiry. But I think it is particularly significant that the president has signed this bill to law on the eve of this anniversary. If you notice, there's been, will I say, a very aggressive attitude towards, initially it was a bit conciliatory on the part of government, but following the aftermath, which, was uncontrollable. There's been a rather aggressive and a very hostile attitude towards that term, NSAS. But I think that there's been some subtle acknowledgement that there was a lot that young people were asking for. And maybe it's an acknowledgement of that. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking in my own mind that perhaps it's an acknowledgement of that, that maybe some work was started. Because if you look at the details of what this startup bill is about, and they've done a great job of work, that if you just go online and you put Nigeria startup bill, you would see significant amount of information just pour out immediately. There is actually a whole page which tells you about what the bill is about, what it seeks to achieve, etc. I'm just going to read parts of it. It says, the Nigeria Startup Bill project is a joint initiative by Nigeria's tech startup ecosystem and the presidency to harness the potential of our digital economy through co-created regulations. The main objectives of the bill is to provide a legal and institutional framework for the development of startups in Nigeria, and they have a number of other objectives: provide an enabling environment, as Chimlin has pointed out, foster the development and growth of technology-related talent, and position Nigeria's startup ecosystem as the leading digital technology hub in Africa, having excellent innovators with cutting-edge skills and exportable capacity. We saw a few years ago the visit of Mark Zuckerberg to Nigeria, and what piqued his interest was, one of the tech hubs we had in Lagos, and we understand that these things grew by themselves, organically, from amongst the innovation of our young people. So this is an acknowledgement of the effort that a lot of young people have made within that space. We've seen our young people grow unicorns, well, sometimes with a bit of controversy, but in many instances, bringing us great pride, even outside the shores of our country. We saw one of them being honored, after the president gave him his honors. The president was looking at, I don't know what the president was looking at, to be honest, but he is a rather interesting fellow, so to speak, in terms of how he dresses, etc. So maybe the president was, wondering what is going on here. But these are the people who are doing us proud, and there are lots more of them within our system whom we can encourage. So it is a good thing that the Nigeria Startup Bill has now been signed into law. I'm hoping that a lot of young people will be able to take advantage of it. Let us hope that whatever it is that they need to make sure that they're able to implement it to the fullest, and that it's not just a law on paper, but a law that really truly works for the Nigeria tech ecosystem, and drives it to its full potential. Certainly, it is welcome, Chimberlain.
Indeed, Mawkwe, it is truly welcome. And I like how you started, with the significance of the date, and just going down memory lane. We recall what happened on the 20th of October 2020 in this country. We recall how it was the youth who were in the vanguard of that movement. And it was not just a rallying point to protest against extortion, to protest against harassment, to protest against police brutality. It was also a rallying point, to demand good governance. And I recall, the 10-point agenda put forward, that document put forward by the youth, that became, a document shared widely on the Nigerian social media space, good governance, provision of, facilities, for the collective good of Nigerians, a demand that the commonwealth, of Nigeria will be truly shared by Nigerians. And who were those in the vanguard of that movement? It was the Nigerian youth. And one thing that is significant, about that was that if Nigerian youth at that time, were fully engaged, were meaningfully engaged, there would hardly be that mass movement, of Nigerian youth converging at the Lekki toll gate. And as you rightly said, there's been some sort of acknowledgement about, you know, the truth of what transpired on that day by retired Major General who has been widely reported, said he described what happened that day, you know, posted on Instagram Live by one of the leaders of that movement as Photoshop, as you know, being because he swore an oath of allegiance to the military. So in good conscience has come out to acknowledge what the truth was. Now that the Nigerian, you know, startup bill, tech startup bill has been signed into law, it's a victory for Nigerian youth, if you ask me, you know, because of some of the benefits accruable for the Nigerian youth in that bill, for startups that have been registered for not more than 10 years. They can access seed to drive their businesses. They can access incentives. And, you know, Jimpolin also talked about what the Minister of Communication said last night. You know, beyond the humor of it, you know, the victory for Nigerian youth there is that one of the provisions of the bill is that they will no longer be harassed, you know, for those who are carrying laptops about and they're viewed as, you know, Yahoo boys, those involved in some form of financial fraud. If you are meaningfully engaged and you are an innovative youth, you know, with ideas with which you're, you know, trying to work on online, nobody has the right, you know, to, you know, view you with any form of suspicion. So, you know, coming on the eve of the 20th of October, it is significant. It's a victory for the Nigerian youth. And in this day of, you know, efforts by government officials to build a knowledge-based economy, the Nigerian tech startup bill is the way to go. Now, the academic community must now rise to the occasion. There must no longer be what we popularly describe as the disconnect between the town and the gown. It is the age where we require technology to drive a lot of our services, you know, to drive traffic, to protect infrastructure. We need Nigerian youth to rise to the occasion and take advantage, full advantage of the Nigerian tech startup bill. Ayo.
On the one hand is the fact that the bill is now a law, and a lot of information, as Mark said, is awash on the internet about it. On the other hand, for me, and which is always giving me concern, is the execution of it, is how it is played out to the young people. For instance, one of the recommendations of the law says that you need to get a certificate to be labeled a startup. So for you to be labeled a startup, you need to get you know, some kind of certificate. You have to be a certified startup, and there are benefits that are accrued to that. The question for me then will be in the execution. We know we have fantastic laws, policies, and all of those things. So how it is going to be executed in a way that the process will not frustrate the young people. For me, that's the major concern. So much has been said, and so much can be said about this, but we still have a lot of grounds to cover. Chamberlain.
Many states are flooded. Ascribe to FG. That's a big one, point blank right there. Exonerates Cameroon's Lagdo Dam. 10 Kogi LGs still submerged. Ascribe to the commissioner. Flooding forces NLNG to shut in gas production. So are we going to, I think some reports were saying we may just have we may have to pay a little higher for the products. Nobody ever wants to hear that.
A little high. Would that be for cooking gas?
Cooking gas.
I do not know if that affects cooking gas, but
Which
you know,
is...
there are already reports that is already beginning to affect cooking gas.
Oh, so who knows? Who knows? But this is the big lead right here today. Obajana Kogi institutes legal action against Dangote Group. That's a big one we also see right there. But there you go. That is Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Okay, Daily Trust is the next one here. The lead headline there, look at this. Federal government records 1.33 trillion naira deficit. Missed revenue target by 34%. In other words, we didn't meet our revenue projections by as much as 34%. Oil revenue target dips by 72.9% to convert 20 trillion naira CBN loans to 40-year bond. Subsidy hampering revenue growth. That's according to Finance Minister. Page 4 is where you get details. And I have to buttress that, even though they are totally unrelated, but related in some way. Look at this. Petrol hawkers having field day. I believe this is having a field day as fuel scarcity bites harder in Abuja. You bet that I'm certainly interested in this story. I mean, on behalf of many residents right here in the FCT, and the long queues, the long, mean queues we see on our expressways and in our inner cities. It is really something to worry about. The man hours lost, etc. And still, no word. Page 4 is where you find details. You see this now. Brain drain. Nigeria left with 24,000 doctors. That's from the NMA. NNPC spent 788 billion naira on salaries, forex, entertainment, others. That is on page 21. Ripples in APC as Adamu replaces suspended directors. And you also saw this yesterday. Second Niger Bridge completed. Abuja, Kaduna, Kano Road, 50% attributed to the Minister of Works and Housing. I think that there was some updates that that bridge wasn't going to be ready until 2024. But looks like the minister is debunking that and saying he's given his word that the bridge is either ready or almost ready. Well,
yeah, either by December or early next year.
Okay,
that
so
will be used.
But you see here, Second Niger Bridge completed. So what exactly is the delay? If it's completed, why can't we use it?
Well. Your guess is as good as mine.
Page 3 might give you insights. I mean, if you're asking questions like I am. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
And flip right now to the Vanguard newspaper, which is on its front page, also talking about floods. And what do you have on its front page? Floods account for 1.1 trillion, beg your pardon, 1 trillion naira ecological votes. FG tasks states. Wow. Story is on page 5. States receive chunk of funds. Let them account. Subscribe to presidency. Okay. So who's going to be asking the questions? I mean, I think you asked, the function of the National Assembly in this the other time. There are committees that are supposed to be doing one thing or the other.
Absolutely.
So if the federal government is saying that the states should account, who should be asking them? Okay. At their first responders, reps start probe. Well, members of the House of Representatives came from states. Will they be asking their governors, hey, what's up? Lagdo
That's
Dam.
going to be, I don't know if I should add that, that's going to be seed for conflict ahead of the 2027 elections.
Well, Lagdo Dam not responsible for flooding. That's ascribed to the minister. Really? Well, if what we discussed on this program yesterday is anything to go by, we may not be responsible, but it is significant.
Absolutely.
But hey, the minister must have the information that I don't have. All of that you will find on page 5 of the paper this morning. Right under that one is a scorecard briefing. It's a picture of some ministers there, perhaps where some of the information given by Marquez from the previous paper came from. FG to tackle deficit, debt with asset sales, other measures. That's ascribed to the finance minister. Of course, the back page has sports special athletes clash with police in Lagos. Well, what's that about? National Council on Sports excludes them from sports festival. All of that and several others you'll find on the inside pages.
Ayo, don't deny us the joy of Mr. and Mrs. this morning.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. better be... Okay, let's see. Well, Mr. is saying here to Mrs. Look at my wife. Look at my heartbeat, my sunshine. Do you know there's something special about you? And what is that, Mrs. Says? People are getting thinner, but your size increases as the price of bag of rice increases. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? As a Vanguard newspaper.
On behalf of Mrs. This Morning, we're going to lead a protest against Mr. Okay, from Vanguard This Morning, let's take a very quick look at New Telegraph. New Telegraph this morning leads with, some sort of conflict, maybe something milder brewing between the minister and senators. And this is the way it is captioned. Minister disagrees with senators over cause of flooding. Says Cameroonian dam not responsible, though country notified Nigeria 24 hours after opening spillway. Blames calamity on heavy rainfall, silted riverbeds, building on floodplains. The last of the riders says NEMA 4,885 households ravaged by flood in Ogun.
When you listen to the Commodore that came on air yesterday to describe exactly what happened, that the rain of 48 hours, well, of 2 years or thereabout, fell in 48 hours. Add that to the quantum, and he described the quantum of water that came from the dam. And, we're still saying, and we didn't get enough notice. We got 24-hour notice. No, we got notice 24 hours after the water has been released. After? According to the minister. And regardless, what crosses my mind at this time is whether or not Nigeria entered into an agreement with Cameroon. Is it responsible governance that a dam to check, the consequence of release of water from the Lagdo Dam should have been built or not, especially when you consider that the Lagdo Dam was built in the 80s, according to our conversation from yesterday. Even though, the Commodore acknowledges that he can't quite say categorically whether, this disaster may have been mitigated if that dam had been built. Well, but is it responsible governance that that dam ought to have been built to check, the advent of flood? I'm just going to wait for, whatever the various levels of government will do about this. As we heard, the reps are starting a probe, another probe. But I guess we'll have to wait to see, because if the federal government, the presidency, is indicting the states, then there are questions to answer, one way or the other. Speaking of waiting, Ayo, for such things, the sad thing is we always wait for too long. Still with New Telegraph this morning, let's go, beneath the nameplates to see some stories that will catch your fancy. This one at the extreme left-hand corner is captioned this way: allegations. Senate summons Niger Delta minister over plot to siphon 480 billion naira NDDC fund. Assault CCT chair shuns summon. Interesting. It's a page 3 and 26 read. There's this one also from INEC. Over 300,000 unclaimed PVCs litter INEC offices in Delta. Commission demands data on PWDs, that's persons with disability. 300,000 is quite a number when you consider that one vote can cause a significant change in these coming elections. So certainly, for those in Delta, go get your PVCs. And, well, just two more before we exit New Telegraph. Ekiti Speaker Afuye dies at 66. That's a sad one, and we do commiserate with the people of Ekiti State on the demise of the Speaker of the State Assembly. And lastly, Sanwo-Olu commissions 150 classroom blocks, hostels in 15 Lagos schools. Let's leave it there for the New Telegraph.
All right, and so that ends it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. But we'd like to just quickly bring you this traffic alert from the Federal Road Safety Corps. Now, they tell us that a crash involving 2 burning tankers occurred around Araromi town after a corner oil filling station towards Shagamu interchange on the outward Lagos section of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It goes on to say that rescue teams have been deployed, fire service has been contacted, A bus is said to be involved, but the casualty is not yet ascertained. And then the men of the Federal Road Safety Corps have cordoned off the entire lane from Lagos end, and then they diverted traffic to the Ibadan-Lagos side of the expressway. Now, they say motorists plying this route are advised to be a little more cautious, be patient until normal traffic is restored. And this is coming through from the Assistant Corps Marshal, Corps Public Education Officer of the FRSC, Mr. Bisi Kazim. So again, that's a traffic alert, a crash involving 2 burning tankers. So if you do know anyone who perhaps may be headed that way, you may do well to notify them. But men of the fire service, you understand, they're doing their best to extinguish that, and then more of them will be coming through from Abeokuta to that Shagamu end of the scenario here. So a bit of caution will be necessary.
Indeed, Chamberlain, I do hope that people are patient on that route.
That's key, actually.
And, you know, I hope that they cooperate with those who will be directing them on how to proceed with traffic.
Yeah,
I think the question oftentimes is how to get the information to people who are already on the road, because they're certainly not watching television, but I'm hoping that they're tuned into their radios, and perhaps, you know, that information would also be passed on the radio as well, and maybe also along the road. People should be alerted that there's been an accident in front, so that they can exercise some patience when they see that the traffic begins to slow down.
I should have an idea about that, but okay, well, we'll talk about it much later. Well, that is it with a look at some of the dailies here as well. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us. The use of technology in conducting transparent elections is a focus of this training of master trainers by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Amidst reports of plans to distort the use of technology for the 2023 general elections, the chairman of the electoral body assures Nigerians of massive deployment of technology to all parts of the country for the exercise.
The combination of Beavers and IRA portal have come to stay as a means of voter education and transmission of election results. Nothing will change that reality.
While the chairman of the Board of Electoral Institute harps on the need for credible elections, the country director of International Foundation for Electoral Systems promises continued partnership with INEC.
The special training and retraining of all categories of electoral personnel for delivery of effective and efficient electoral services at all levels is a standing principles of the Commission.
INEC can count on our readiness to continually partner with the Commission in achieving its mission of serving as an independent and effective election management body committed to conducting free, fair, and credible elections for sustainable democracy in Nigeria.
Recent reports of violence at campaign venues and the refusal to grant access to venues by some state governments also have the attention of the electoral body.
Let me caution parties and their supporters to focus on issues and steer clear of attacks on each other. These are not only violations of the Electoral Act 2022, but also negate the voluntary commitment by all political parties and candidates to the letter and spirit of the peace accord signed about 3 weeks ago under the auspices of the National Peace Committee.
The 3-day training is expected to equip participants on how to be able to effectively and efficiently organize and lead training sessions for other officials towards the conduct of a successful 2023 general elections.
Voter education, that's what this program opens with today. And as you have seen, Mike Igini joins us this morning. He is former INEC resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ayo and Bukola, for having me, and of course, Chamberlain and Mark in Abuja. Good morning.
Let's start with this hue and cry that we've been hearing over Beavers. Some people saying that some people are trying to stop the use of the Beavers and all of that. Meanwhile, the law is clear on whether or not, who has the authority to decide how the elections will be conducted. The law is clear about the fact that, look, it is whatever INEC says or whichever process INEC decides will be used, that will be used, including electronic means. So is there any significance to the hue and cry?
Well, thank you very much. As I said in our last engagement here, that the area I want to contribute as a citizen, using my office of the citizen, like all Nigerians, is to help to educate Nigerians a whole lot of things that they need to know, particularly the fact that at the moment, the collective efforts of all Nigerians that led to the passage of the 2022 Act by the National Assembly that I have commended over and over again, and again this morning I commend National Assembly, as well as Mr. President for signing that into an act. It's what is giving us hope for the 2023 election, because what gives spice and piquancy to the practice of democracy is participation. And for you to participate in an environment of where we have high level of poverty and the standard of living is low, where level of awareness is not as high, it is important that we provide information for Nigerian people, because information is knowledge and knowledge is power. And more importantly, the fact that, the greatest promise of democracy is participation. Now, as you noted, in the entire Federal Republic of Nigeria, apart from institutions that are called upon to assist INEC, other agencies, the Independent National Electoral Commission, where I have worked for 10 years, remains the only institution, to the exclusion of any other, that is empowered to organize, undertake, and supervise the election in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In fact, I think the starting point is for all to recognize that Section 160 of the Constitution of the Fatherland stated clearly that of all the executive bodies that are established under Section 153 of the Constitution, that with respect to the Independent National Electoral Commission, its powers to make rules, regulate its own procedure, shall not be subject to the control or direction of even any person who is holding the office of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is there in the Constitution. Furthermore, drilling down to the question about the Beavers and all of that, the Electoral Act itself, which is now the chief priest helping to interpret what the oracle itself have said, which is the oracle, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the uncommanded commander, that stated that INEC has that power. Now, the good news to Nigerians is that under the law, Section 47 had made it very clear. In fact, Section 50 says it granted to support Section 160 the operational independence of INEC. Therefore, by virtue of the provision I've referenced, particularly Section 47 of the 2022 Electoral Act, it stated clearly that Independent National Electoral Commission shall deploy the use of either the Beavers or any technological device that should be used for one, to verify, to confirm, and to authenticate any voter on election day. The beauty of this section is that it has helped this country to cure the mischief that have been going on since 2002 Electoral Act. Section 40 of the 2002 Electoral Act, Section 49 of the now repealed 2010 Act had been used by politicians to rig election in connivance with some of our corrupt, compromised pool officials. For a period of 17 years, this has been the problem we are having with Section 40 of 2002 Electoral Act and Section 49, to the effect that once a voter comes to a presiding officer, upon being satisfied, underline, satisfied that is the true person, he will issue him a ballot paper. This is what I've been using to regulate. How? I'm sure recently you've been reading or hearing that they are dumping PVC in so many places in the country right now. Do you know the reason why they are dumping PVC? They are now dumping the PVC because of the fact that Section 47 had now cured this Section 49 that had been used before. Because under the current situation, all those who have warehouse INEC PVC, deprived Nigerians of those PVC, they cannot use them anymore.
When you say some who are sorry, Bukola, warehousing the cards, where did they get the cards from? Isn't it from INEC?
Good. It is on record. Check your record. That when in 2011, by way of historical memory, to recall that with the introduction of the biometric register, which now makes it for the first time in the history of the country since 2011, that a Nigerian, you register once in your lifetime. At best, if you are moving from one domicile to another, what is required is to do transfer. Now, the moment the PVC now came on board, because that Section 49 was still the law, so people broke into INEC offices across the country. Remember that at the inception of the PVC, the use of PVC, we are no longer using, I would have brought some of the specimen since in 1999, when we're using ordinary paper card. Politicians will either connive with our INEC staff in the past or break into the offices. Recall that in January 2014, when I was now deployed to Edo State, I addressed stakeholders that, look, all those who broke into INEC office in Edo State, just as it happened even in Cross River, where I was deployed to Edo State, that, look, those PVC returned them. So the question you ask, how did they get those PVC? They burgled INEC offices in various parts of the country and collected those PVC. But we will be calling for this since that period, since the 2022 Electoral Act, where you now have Section 47 that has put an end to issue about people, warehousing PVC, buying PVC.
I wanted to add to that.
So all of that, because today, people must take note of the following, that when they get to the polling unit, no more incident form anymore. You can no longer talk about what they call manual accreditation. But what we have now is what they call the bimodal process.
So essentially, the system is now fail-safe to the extent that those who are trying to, well, according to reports, who are trying to circumvent the process, using the suit against the Beavers and the conspiracy to sack the INEC boss, it's an exercise in futility. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. And I think that, we need to, that's the reason why I said this continuing education is very important. Because law acts as an enabler and as a constraint. And I can see a high level of debilitating ignorance on the part of our elites, many of whom who have no philosophical insight to what we are doing. That somebody, in fact, I would ask elsewhere, is it possible for that in the face of the law, Section 160, Section 47 of the current act, that an order could be given to stop the use of beavers? And I said, if you are asking that question, then it means that you have no sense of history. A judge, a corrupt judge, that would be the most dangerous to our society could do that. Because it has happened before.
Sorry, just a second.
Yes.
Bukola's question, I think, is very specific. Just a second. She's asking that, is it possible for a judge or a court of law to outlaw beavers for this election?
It will be contrary to public policy, and totally it will lead to a widespread disruption of public life.
No, I'm
going there. I am going there.
Constitution that you quoted and the law.
That's what, against the background of this law, it will be contrary to public policy. It will be wrong. It will lead to widespread disruption for a judge to do so. But is it impossible? It is not impossible.
If the law, if that order is given, going by what the Constitution and the law says, should it be obeyed?
Good. No matter how wrong an order from a court, even from a magistrate, may be, the tradition, as you've heard INEC all the time, is to obey, but take steps to set it aside. This is the danger we are going to face with. Because remember, the Babangida administration, from when they had several shifts of the timetable of the period of handover, in order to assure Nigerians that indeed June 12th fixed for election was real, a decree was promulgated to the effect that no court in the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall stop the holding of election. That was given as an assurance to Nigerian people and to the entire international community. But on the eve of June 12th, a lawyer like myself, a lawyer sitting as a judge, Justice Ikpeme, I understand it's late now, sat in the night and gave an order that June 12th election should not hold. That was where the problem of 1993 June 12th election started. When that happened, other people went to another court to get another order. Different orders were being issued from different courts. On the 23rd of June, 1993, the military regime, relying on the situation that had been created deliberately, said they were annulling that election using even an unsigned press release to avoid what they call judicial anarchy. That was what was said. Recall that at the moment, if not too long ago, you heard elites who accused themselves of having some order they kept in their pocket and all of that. People can go to their villages now to go and get an order, ex parte order. So to say, and that's why my worry is my constituency, the judiciary. Because Alexis de Tocqueville, when he was talking about, when he wrote glowingly about democracy in America, he made a point, and we all know this today, that in the United States of America, the greatest strength of the American democracy is because of the judiciary. Will our colleagues in the judiciary stand tall and mighty in
and not
defense
be
of democracy, and you are not to be an instrument
in the hands of
to
politicians.
bring a widespread disruption of public life? Because I can just imagine
Mr.
what will happen.
Mr. Igini, should we be worried? I mean, this document, about this suit against the Beavers is available online, and we had, some politicians also coming to express worry that some state governments are trying to, remove the INEC boss, surreptitiously. So should we be worried?
Look, I think we should have on the screen what we call the election day pyramid. Who is in charge of election in Nigeria? We need to have it so that Nigeria can see that the unnecessary call to poison, to create an atmosphere that is the pyramid of election day. Now, if you look at the top of every pyramid, the top is always very narrow. The first one showing red, that is the headquarters where you have the chairman and the entire national commissioners, directors in Abuja. The second is the state where you have the resident electoral commissioners. The third is the local government in Nigeria, 774. Now, from all the other columns we are seeing down, who are the people? They are not core INEC staff. How many people realize that the INEC chairman, the national commissioner, the directors, the state, and the EO, on election day, they cannot append a signature. They cannot issue a ballot paper. They cannot stamp and sign a ballot paper on election day. So what this pyramid shows to you is that from the supervisory presiding officer, where for the purpose of having enough staff, we are going to get maybe staff from after INEC staff, we are going to get people from federal agencies and all of that. Down to the polling unit, they are Nigerians. That shows to you that the pyramid of values, that the outcome of election, success or failure, is a reflection of the collective value of a people. Therefore, talking about INEC chairman who cannot sign a document on that day, calling on the resignation or a rep who cannot sign a document on election day, is totally misconceived, unnecessary distraction of what we need to do. I think that what we should be focusing on is that, like I said elsewhere, that look, if you look at the Holy Book, both in the Bible, Matthew chapter 24, or you look at the version of it in the Quran, you see, I want to reverse part of what Jesus Christ said at Mount Olive, to the fact that when the end time is come, you will see some sign. 2023 will mark a watershed in the history of election conduct in our country. Because INEC had developed quite a number of tools unknown to people. How many people know that INEC does tracking, that we do tracking? And as I speak to you, following the signing into an act on the 25th of February this year, the INEC went to office on Saturday. It was signed, president signed on a Friday, 25th. By 26th, INEC went to office across the country, revising, changing everything to reflect the current electoral act. But the politicians out there, we are doing so much reform, but there's no change of attitude to, complement what INEC is doing. And that is why, many politicians you are seeing today, they are going to experience what they call the dinosaur experience in 2023.
When you say, INEC is tracking elections, yes, please explain.
Now, INEC had developed what they call the Election Monitoring and Support Center that is based in Abuja. And it had 36 secretariats across the country. We call it the EMSC, Election Monitoring and Support Center. That support center has some basic tools that gives INEC what you call 360-degree visibility of what happened across the country. Now, at the Secretariat, in each state of the Federation, now, because the EMSC is to manage the election management system, the EMS. And in that is one of the two, you now have what they call the election risk management system that gives INEC early warning information about what is happening across the country. Then you have the one I want to talk about that should be shown on the slide here, is the EOSC, the Election Operations Support Center. This is, in fact, the most critical one indeed. That is to say, by tracking, if you can have it on the slide for Nigerians to see, so that Nigerians go and collect your PVC. Forget all the things you are hearing about. 2023 is going to be about your will. It's going to be about you. It's no longer about somebody losing election at the polling unit. Then suddenly becomes a winner at the work collection center or any of the collection centers. Now, first, okay, that is done. Let's go to the tracking system. You are going to see that in INEC office, all right, that is not, we'll come to that. There's another infographic there that you are going to see. Now, the tracking system is this. You have a team. For example, Akwa Ibom has 31 local governments. On the eve of election, that operation will be set up. When it is set up, they will track the movement of the materials from the central bank, where initial material will be kept, down to the INEC state office. At the INEC state office, the material will now be moved to the local government for batching. At that point, while I was seated in my office, with the team, we have the conference room, which is what you call the tracking room, where you'll be tracking the entire, we'll be tracking the entire 31 local government of Akwa Ibom State. You have the tracking team there. Now, what do? As the materials move from the state to the local government, from the local government to the rack centers, from rack centers to the polling unit in the wheel hour, up to the time of opening of the poll in the morning, down to reverse logistics, by the closing of the poll, this team of trackers
Are you saying that this tracker can also track officials while they're in transit moving the materials?
Of course, because materials don't move alone. Materials are moved by the pool officials.
Are they devices connected to the officials or to the materials?
There are people who are given equipment. They have their telephone, they have every gadget with them. They move with the materials. So they will be giving the feedback, all right, to the state. Okay, this is a typical polling unit setting. But the tracking, let's get the tracking right. The Electoral Operations Support Center. For example, to make it more graphic, on the eve of that election, there were some politicians who were harvesting, arresting, hijacking materials from one rack center to the other. At about 12:30 midnight, I got the number of some of those involved, and I placed a call. I mean, you will have read in social media when some people said that Igini is using magic. There is no magic. What is basically being done was the tracking system that was ongoing. So we tracked everything. At the time of opening of the poll, it will be tracked, all right? At the time of when the poll have ended, it will be tracked. Now, when I sit in the office, they will be printing that for me, quarterly, hourly. It was led by one Ngozi, who came from Abuja, and you have all that in 36 states. So the idea here is that politicians go and study the current 2023 Acts. The game is up. The game is up. What they should do now is to go and get no less than 186,466 party agents. Because under the current Act, Section 43, all the political parties, all those who are contesting election, House of Assembly, State of Assembly, Federal House, Senatorial. For example, let's take a presidential election. We now have a total from the initial 199,973 polling unit with the additional creation of a polling unit after 25 years to create more access for Nigerians. The commission now have a total of 176,846 polling units. For each of the polling units, a political party or candidate, you need an agent. So primarily, at the level of the polling unit, you need 176,846.
Sorry, Bukola. Speak to this polling unit setup that came on screen just a little while ago. Right. Exactly what does it mean, and what are the things that Nigerians should be, should be looking at?
Very, very quickly to just wrap it up, you need that numbers. At the Work Collection Center, you need 8,809 agents. At the local government, you need 774 agents. Then of course, at the state level, you need each for presidential, you need 37. Now, this is the typical polling unit setup on that day. So this data I just provided, what the party need to do now. Now, if you look from your left-hand side, you are going to see the security person, somebody showing that it's a security. Now, the APO3, assistant, presiding officer 3, all right, is what they call the queue controller. He will be there, or she will be there. So if you look at those who have lined up, you have to show your PVC to him or her. Now, every permanent voter's card is coded according to where you register. Now, if he looks at the PVC and he finds out that you are not in the right polling unit, you'll be directed to move to another place because that's not your proper polling unit. But anybody who is supposed to be in that polling unit from the arrow you are seeing, he will now proceed to the next presiding officer there, who will now, they can burden it and all that. That's the next person who, okay.
Keep going.
All right? He will go to that particular APO, all right? From there, they will check the register. They will now ask to go to the next one that will now put apply the ink to the cortical. Thereafter, he goes to the pool manager, which is the presiding officer himself, who, by virtue of section 71 of the Act, must issue the ballot to the potential voter. He must stamp and sign. This is very important. He must stamp and sign. That is a statutory requirement of that presiding officer. After doing that, he goes straight to the cubicle. Now, you will find 3 people be facing the presiding officer, the pool officials there. You have the observer, officially accredited observer that will be there. You also now have the party agent. We just have only 2 indicated there now. All right, party agent in that, looking at what is going on. In fact, in Ghana, in some other countries, they will also have what we call a kind of a board, showing that as the presiding officer is admitting those who have been duly given a ballot paper, they will also be doing that recording together. It's a collective responsibility at that stage.
Very quickly, I want you to speak to the positioning of the ballot box, which is also always a subject of controversy during elections.
Yes.
You said before the program started that it's an administrative decision by INEC.
Correct.
But what should be done differently now, such that it to be transparent?
What should be done differently now is that you see the arrow showing to the cubicle where somebody, the arrow showing the cubicle where somebody is going to make a choice of who he or she wants to be. Now, if you look at the party agents here that we are seeing here, they are likely, beyond what you find here, they are likely to see what he or she is doing there.
In the ballot box.
In the ballot,
at the cubicle, at the polling unit and all that. And the possibility of trying to show like this is there. So now the box, I do also have a box there there will now be a box. The box now will be facing the pool agent. It's only the security personnel. I mean, you've read a report about the possibility of deploying some undercover agent. The police officer there will not be looking straight at the box, but will not be seeing what he or she is doing. This is actually, so after he or she has made that choice, which is what Nigerians have also contributed by what we call, in abroad, in other part of the country, you just at that place, the box is already there with you. But in Nigeria, we are not too trusting of who is going to that very place. He could be having some other ballot paper in his pocket. So the idea is that we are now doing what we call a remodified secret ballot system. So when you have done that, you fold the ballot paper. You now come out and make it open so everybody can see the ballot box is there. Everybody. And in any case, every result and every election, you know, is colored. The ballot paper, they are colored differently.
Differently for Senate, differently for House of
Reps,
Assembly,
governorship,
and all of that.
Well,
that is the way the polling in what should happen there. And of course, quickly, the agent, they have a right under Section 61 of the Act, you know, to ensure that in the course of sorting and counting, all these type of abracadabra you see in their so-called primary, where somebody will say 5, 8, 17, and all of that. Of course, it's not a very common thing with our system. But a presiding, a party agent, all right, has a right to mint or a recount. But quickly, to just add to that, please take note. In this 2023 and previously, a deputy governor, anybody holding a public office now, cannot be a party agent under the law.
Okay. Well, there is more of that. Where that came from, there's too much of the education. But we're going to have to continue this when we return from this break. And of course, our colleagues in Abuja would want to weigh in. Stay with us. Our conversation continues with Mike Igini, who is a former INEC resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State. Let's continue this conversation with our colleagues in Abuja. Guys.
Yes, thank you, Ayo. Mr. Igini, now with all of these reforms, can any of these reforms, or maybe a combination of these reforms, is it going to bring about behavioral change on the part of politicians from your perspective?
Thank you very much. A society makes progress on the basis of sanction and reward. And for a successful election, as I've said over and again, it requires the cooperation of all stakeholders. It is actually our expectation that, and that is why some of the tools that have been developed are such that it will be difficult, if not impossible, for politicians to have their way going forward. And again, I want to thank the National Assembly and the President for signing this, making this happen. Because as I also noted, you will have found that today, one of the shenanigans of politicians before, which has already been taken care of, you go and look at Section 137 of the current Act, you will find that even after election, Chamberlain, you'll find that it's no longer possible for people to say at the tribunal they want to bring 300 witnesses just to frustrate the case. Today, under the current Act, there will be no requirement for such oral testimony anymore. Because INEC electoral process, every document you find in INEC, they are coded. They are coded according to the purpose for which they are meant to be served. And that's why I keep telling you that there's a particular provision which is a shield to the entire process, and it's also a sword against those who want to do. And I will never mention it. And that's why I also told people who try to say, look, it's only when you want to rig election that you should be bothering to know that particular provision, because that provision is to protect the vote of Nigerian people. At the appropriate time, we should talk about it. So, in terms of the behavior of the political class, the greatest tragedy in our country, Chamberlain, is that whereas so much innovations have been carried out to change the trajectory of our election, to take the poetry of our election from the rubric of pain, violence, and frustration, this has not been complemented by a change of behavior on the part of the political class. So, but for us, you know, the law becomes a very powerful instrument that we must use to change the situation. To expect that a donkey will get rid of his large ear by shaking his head vigorously will be under grand illusion. And that is why people whose action, conduct tend to undermine the process must be brought to book. As you saw yesterday when a professor fainted in Akwa Ibom, who was involved in generating and publishing false results, unknown to him that the tracking system was real and it was ongoing. And we tracked everything. And that is what has happened to him. And that's what also led to the conviction of Professor Peter Ogban for 3 years imprisonment. So the reforms are there. And the beauty, again, I thank the National Assembly, and I must thank Mr. President really for signing this to make it this happen, because in 2023, the will of the people of this country will count. The will of the people is what is going to happen in 2023. Nothing anybody can do. And that is why one of the things, which is why we decided to have this undertaken, I thank National Channel Television and other platforms that have made themselves available for Nigerians to be educated on this part. It will let Nigerians know that power has been taken back to you, as we have seen with the election day pyramid. I mean, look at all the youths who are saying, oh, it's their time and so on and so forth. Now, let us know. We want to see whether you will not betray this time around, because at the level of the 176,846 polling unit, they are going to be young undergraduates who are currently in the youth service. They will be the one that will man the entire polling unit of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But what is more important in all of this is that when I made the point the other time, that talking about the tracking, I'm sure you will have had that slide now for the tracking to show, is that Bukola Chamberlain, the era of somebody losing or losing an election at a polling unit and it subsequently becomes a winner at the War Coalition Center, it's all over. It's all over, and it's for good. What is required?
Mr. Igini.
Yes.
If I may interrupt here, when you said that, you know, that the will of Nigerians will count in 2023, I was saying an amen to that as you were speaking. But looking at what we currently have on the ground, just a few days ago, or 2 days ago, thereabouts ago, the INEC chairman was raising concerns about the current fouling up of the political environment. We've seen some marked intolerance on the part of those who are, will I say, campaigning. And this is in spite of attempts by the Peace Committee, which has now come to stay, to try and foster an atmosphere of peace, an atmosphere of fair play and conviviality. Will I say, as we proceed to the 2023 elections. For you, how important is this? I mean, the INEC chairman has already raised concerns about it. Is there anything that INEC can be doing to ensure that political parties are more tolerant? Or would you say that maybe we, the people ourselves, have a great role to play in this?
Mark, thank you very much. Election periods is a moment when the citizens' commitment to the ideal of that state is actually determined, particularly state institutions. The tragedy of our country is that very many who have roadside values have been brought into the democratic process. They have no respect for the rule of law. Ours has become a case of the far corner no longer listen to the far corner. On the part of INEC, what the Commission should continue to do, as it's already doing, is to make sure that every inch of the process is not violated. Because the politicians we are talking about, look at what they are doing, despite the law. And that's why I said that, look, good laws, even procedures, as robust as they may be, are not self-executory. They are not self-implementing. It will require a collective effort to do so. As a matter of fact, of all the six stakeholders I've identified over time, 3 are very important here. One, the election management body, the EMB, INEC. Number 2, you have the judiciary. And number 3, security. These are the trinity of this institution I mentioned will change the trajectory. Now, look at what is going on. The disruption of either rallies, depriving people the use of civic centers across the country. There's already a growing level of intolerance. Despite the provision of Section 91, subsection 4 of the 2022 Electoral Act, we stated clearly that no candidate or political party shall be prevented from holding rallies or procession during this window that has been granted by the law, now from 90 days of campaign to, as you could see there, so that it is not me speaking. That is the law there. No registered political party in Nigeria, its aspirant or candidate shall be prevented from holding rallies, procession, meeting at any time for the constitutional political purposes, and the police shall, in consultative manner, resolve any conflict of time and venue.
Please explain consultative.
Yes. There was a report somewhere, either in the Zamfara, one of the states at the moment, where there was an argument about the use of venue. The import of that section is to the fact that if Party A had applied for the use of a venue, Party A may not be the ruling party at the state level or at the national level. But thereafter, the ruling party, either at the state level or at the national level, will have made an application, all right? The principle of first in time should take priority. Okay. Therefore, when there's a conflict, the Nigerian police is now expected to weigh in on the basis of this. But more important is that what we must appreciate is that sometimes we are so conscious of our power that we want to exercise it. But if you look at Section 91, subsection 3 of the current act, unlike even some other countries where during the election period, the entire security policing is given to the election management body for the control and direction, completely without direction from any other authority. But in Nigeria, to ensure that there's sanity toward that election, that section I refer to say that the Police Acts, the Public Order Acts, any other law in Nigeria, for the time being, shall be in abeyance.
Well,
and that the duty of the police shall now be limited. That is the word underline. Shall be limited to providing security. Well, but you will find that in many places, it is the police that running to go and find out what happened.
But then, as you said, even though the law, some laws are in abeyance, but they still have to do their jobs. Yes. Because sometimes there is a very, blurred lines between criminality and some of these things. Correct. But so many other issues to raise with you, but right now we have to put a pause on it and look for another time. There's always a lot to talk about when you come.
I was about to start another talking
that's another program altogether. Mike Igini, former INEC resident electoral commissioner, Akwa Ibom State, thank you so much for being here. We look forward to another session with you on it. Well, still talking elections and politics towards 2023. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. Well, those two gentlemen join us next. We're speaking about addressing electoral violence. Well, first of all, let me introduce the guests. We have Mr. Mark Jacob, who is the chairman, venue committee for presidential rally in Kaduna. He's also the former national legal advisor of the People's Democratic Party. And then Samuel Yohana is a former assistant organizing secretary of the APC in Kaduna State. Is the immediate past. He just left that position. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Now, yes. Yeah, now that we know that there was a rally in Kaduna for the PDP, and then there was some skirmish, some violence occurred at that place, and it really raised a lot of concern. But for the avoidance of doubt, we might as well just read this part of the law, which we spoke to a little earlier, where it has to do with conduct at political rallies and processions. So that's of the Electoral Act 2022. So Section 91(4) says no registered political party in Nigeria, its aspirant or candidate shall be prevented from holding rallies, processions, or meetings at any time for their constitutional, political purpose, and the police shall, in consultative manner, resolve any conflicts of time and venue between and amongst parties where such arises. We're about to find out if any of these scenarios played out. Gentlemen, again, good morning. Let me start with you, Mr. Jacob, concerning the scenario that we saw at the PDP rally in Kaduna. From your account, what happened?
Well, let me start by saying that the PDP rally was well organized. The mobilization was fantastic, and party members and admirers all converged at the Ranchers Beach Stadium. That is at the backdrop of the frustration we encountered with the original venue. The Minister for Youth and Sports refused to grant us use of the facility, even though we applied 10 days before the program. I personally followed up. I was in the Minister's office from 10 a.m. up to 4 p.m. He had not acted on the letter. That was on the 8th of October. And there was no response to that application until the 14th, when they now wrote to say they will not give us the place because it is undergoing renovation, which we went to the venue. There was nothing like that ongoing at the Ahmadu Bello Stadium. We continue to plead. Surprisingly, on Sunday afternoon, a few hours to the program, that was when the minister now sent us a letter saying that we can now use the venue, but that we must deposit 7.5 million naira upfront on a Sunday, and that we should ensure that there will be no breakage or damage, and we must deposit another 3.5 million as caution fee.
Mr. Jacob, I'm sorry, did you say the minister?
Pardon? Yes, the Minister of Youth and Sports.
Okay.
Yes. But let me say for the record that the governor of Kaduna State, in a very fine display of sportsmanship, granted us the use of the Ranchers Beach Stadium, which is a state facility. And I must say that even though the minister might have thought he's working for the APC, his counterpart in Kaduna was a great sportsman because he granted us use of the state facility. And I congratulate him for that. And for me, that is what we should be seeing in all the states. It is very embarrassing that public officers will use their offices to imagine that they are playing politics. And that is one of the things that the Electoral Act frowns upon, that facilities, public facilities, should be made available to all political parties, and that people should not sit in their high offices and display their dislike for other political parties. So the occasion was well attended, but we had an influx of very strange people who came into the arena after about 2 hours of people sitting down, dancing, exchanging pleasantries. There was no altercation anywhere. Then there was an influx of people wielding weapons and cutlasses. They just started attacking from the gate. Those who were seated in
were you able to identify, or was the party able to identify who those people were?
Well, the police made some arrests, and we are sure that they will do their part, because again, the Constitution recognizes who should be involved in law enforcement and who is responsible for investigation. If we had power, we would have stopped those people even from entering the stadium. But we just came there with our flags and banners. We didn't come prepared to encounter any physical attack like this.
Well, I don't know if you've seen a statement from the publicity secretary of the APC, and that statement categorically said that disruption of the PDP Kaduna rally was self-inflicted.
Well, you see, these are the things that also politicians must be advised against, because he is not in a position to make such comments. He was not there. He was not part of the meeting. And honestly, when people begin to speak like this, they immediately begin to suggest that they know more than even the organizers of the program. How did he know that it was self-inflicted if he was not aware of the behind-the-scene arrangements to cause the violence? He must know something, and that is why he's trying to explain it away. I have said I don't have the responsibility or capacity to conduct investigation. And that is what people should allow the law enforcement agencies shoulder with the responsibility of investigation, to unravel the people behind the mask.
So, Mr. Jacob, if that is still going on, where will then the accusation against the APC come in?
Yes. Normally, they will say that you make deductions. But as a lawyer, I won't do such deductions. But you see, you can't stop people from making deductions from preceding occasions or happenings. It is now common knowledge that in Kaduna, all manners of gatherings that have tended to oppose the sitting government or to say something objectively in against the government have been visited with attacks. We are aware that when the NLC organized its rally, the rally was physically assaulted. When a member of the APC was decamping and went to the NUJ Secretariat to make his publication on the decamping, I'm talking of Senator Hunkwi, he was physically assaulted by SOS. And several other meetings like that. Once it is witnessed or it is deducted that you are going to say something that will hurt the sitting government, some violence is visited on you. And you cannot refuse to make these deductions and draw these similar conclusions when a thing is repeated over and over and over again. Of course, the meeting in Kaduna by the PDP was very intimidating. The crowd outside was much more than the crowd.
Okay, Mr. Jacob.
Because the venue was small.
Let's bring in Mr. Yohana, who is of the APC. He's here because of some of those allegations. Well, Mr. Yohana, yes, you just had him build and then go down memory lane, almost trying to establish a pattern, saying if there's going to be a rally or any such gathering that may voice concerns against the sitting government, they are usually attacked. And as such, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, in a manner of speaking, concerning the rally, PDP rally in Kaduna. So directly or indirectly, if you will, APC is accused in this case again.
Chamberlain, thank you for this opportunity, and viewers at home, good morning. I won't sit here and join issues with Barrister Mark Jacob, because they are fond of all this kind of unsubstantiated allegation. In the course of his presentation earlier, you heard him saying that even after they didn't get approval from the relevant authority to use the Ahmadu Bello Stadium, the governor of Kaduna State, in person of Malam Nasser El-Rufai, in his magnanimity or sportsmanship, granted them the township stadium, that's Ranchers Beach Stadium. And They had their rally there. Chamberlain, could you please ask Mark Jacob in the course of our discussion, what kind of people will come into a crowd they claim intimidated the ruling political party in Kaduna, that they couldn't tame those strange people that came in? Like our public relations officer said, he said that violence there was self-inflicted. It was disagreement they had among themselves, where they hired some people to come there, and the money they promised to pay them, they didn't pay them exactly what they promised to pay them. And you know how these boys operate. It is highest bidder, money for hand, back for grant. And when they found out that it was PDP's usual way of deceit, they knew that this money wasn't going to come. So, and the next thing is to vent their anger on innocent Nigerians that came there for an appearance fee. Because as far as we are concerned in APC, PDP is no match to us. And 99% of the crowd you saw there, that they came there on an appearance fee. Whether the fee was paid after the lesson, I don't know. But this miscreant normally want their own payment to be.
All right, I think we lost you, Mr. Johanna. We'll try and reestablish that connection and sort that out, because there's some natural questions that will come up from what you've said in order to see how we can understand your point.
Yeah, it looks like he's back now.
Okay.
Mr. Johanna, if you can hear us, I just want to know, how do you know that 99% of, I mean, those were your words, of those who came there were rented?
Okay, we're thoroughbred politicians, and we've been in this game for a very long time. We understand how this thing goes. Let me tell you something. There is no political party that does not hire crowd. It's just at the level each political party hires. Some days is 20%, some days is 30%, some days is 50%, some days is 99% out of that. Let me tell you something that you might not know. In Kaduna State, PDP is gone. PDP is gone. What you see PDP doing in Kaduna is the last kick of a dying horse.
Well, let me come to you now, Mr. Mark.
Mama, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mr. Johanna. I heard what you said. I mean, you have just admitted on national television that we should never go by the crowds that we see, be it PDP or APC. You have admitted on national television that your party, more specifically, your party, yes. I'm just bringing to you the implications of what it is that you have said. Let me come to Mr. Mark Jacob to see if he will agree with you. You know, that, you know, maybe a certain percentage, maybe if not all of it. Mr. Mark Jacob, is it possible that, you know, a certain percentage, maybe not to your knowledge, because you were just chairing the committee on getting the venue, isn't that correct? But is it to your knowledge that maybe a percentage of the people who came there were hired?
Well, just like you have said, this is good information and it's good expo for Nigerians to assess that an official of the APC is admitting on national television that they normally hire people to attend their functions. The PDP does not have that capacity. The sitting government may go around and hire millions of people because they have the state treasury and several other sources of funding for that. The PDP in Kaduna State has been out of government since 2015. And we don't have a minister, we don't have commissioners, we don't have people that will come and give us money to hire such a crowd. The entire stadium was filled to capacity. And like I said, there are people outside, much more than the people inside. And for the record, I can give you the videos and the tapes. You will see family men, you will see married women, you will see groups, associations, you will see support groups of matured professionals, all in attendance. There is no quantum of money we can amassed to hire.
He raised the fundamental question, though. I mean, he says, when I look, take a look at the people that are there, very enthusiastic crowd, full of energy. Young people don't look like they can be intimidated by anyone. How is it possible then that another group of young people, or thugs, as the case might be, will try to invade such a rally for people who are passionate about a particular candidate and be attacked in the manner that we saw?
That's what I'm saying. Look, just like our former president would say, that it's a madman that will stand in front of a moving train or somebody holding a gun. These people came armed. We came into the stadium early in the morning with flags and banners. Nobody was armed. Before anybody could say anything, they burst through the gate. They broke the gate. The answer to the stadium is there. They know. The gate was broken. The security policemen that were there were overwhelmed. And the entire arena was attacked by armed thugs. So when we are talking of electoral violence, we must call people out when they do the wrong things. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble. The people who came into the stadium in the middle of the proceedings, they were not part of the program.
Yeah, but Mr. Jacob, who are you calling out now?
I'm calling out the thugs, the criminals that were sponsored to come there because, again, just like my brother has admitted, they are good at hiring people, even to attend their program. So we'll not be surprised if they also hire some people to come and disrupt an ongoing program that had proceeded for more than 2 hours uninterrupted. And it was being blind. Up to that stage, there was not single altercation. There was not single quarrel with anybody. People were just dancing and singing and listening to speeches. Then, bam, the gate was pulled down and people came in with cutlasses. Imagine, unarmed people, even if they are youth, they will not stand. So people had to come out for cover. It was the intervention of the police that took charge of the situation to allow us to proceed with the program.
But Mr. Jacob,
otherwise,
what comes
the intention was to disrupt the program in such a way that they'll have the
what comes across with what you're saying is that because several persons who attended that rally may have at the back of their minds that this was done by your rival political party. But what you told us now is that the matter is still being investigated by the police. So now with this sort of mutual suspicion, how then do politicians or political parties conduct themselves if they cannot rely on the narratives of the police? Isn't this going to further fuel the danger or violence that may occur in different political parties when they're holding their rallies?
Look, let me just say this. Whoever got injured in that rally was somebody's son, or somebody's daughter, or somebody's mother or father. And humanity should talk to us. Whoever engineered the influx of the talk from outside, if we had an internal combustion, it would have erupted from inside. But like I explained to you, the security agencies will confirm that while the rally was going on, some people came and broke the gate and entered forcefully and overwhelmed everybody. And they came into a crowd that was unarmed. Now, I am scared that if, to take precaution, people now begin to organize rallies and they put up a force to counter such attacks, we will not have a peaceful political process. And that is what I'm afraid of, because there is nobody that will organize a rally peacefully without arms, and then you just have, while you are proceeding with your own program, some other outsiders just come in with arms and begin to chase you around. The storyline that was already trending before the end of the rally was that Kaduna people have rejected PDP, and therefore they came and chased PDP out of the stadium. It was already trending. So it suggests that some people were already, they were aware of the attack that was going to take place, and they were already preparing the minds of Nigerians to understand why they attack people.
All right.
In their mind,
yeah, just hang on, Mr. Johanna. Now, with narratives such as this, one doesn't know what different camps are thinking at the moment in terms of their next line of action, probably whenever there's another rally from another political party. And these are the kind of things that the organizers, INEC, they're all trying to address this to stop political violence. Mr. Johanna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Chamberlain.
All right,
please,
so
let me correct an impression.
Go ahead.
Let me correct an impression.
No,
But Jacob emphasizing that I say we hire thugs. Let me correct that impression. What I said, I can remember very well. There is no political party. There is no political party that does not hire crowd. It's just that the level, the percentage differs. For some, there's a high. For some, there's an average. Are you with me?
Go ahead.
Are you with me? Did you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
So let him not keep throwing it up that I said we hire a crowd. No. What I said very well.
Yeah, we heard you on that one. What is being done now to address the narratives, impression they have about opposing political parties fomenting trouble whenever groups like that gather?
Yeah, you see, I am glad he admitted that the relevant agencies are investigating the matter. So I don't want us to overflow the issue. Let's wait and see how the investigation pans out. But let me say this. We, the ruling party, are very, very careful the way we conduct ourselves. That is why on the day of that their rally in Kaduna, they cannot tell you that they saw APC members there. And I keep saying it, if you check the video that is trending of that violence, the violence came up towards the end of the rally when the crowd has started leaving. So, like I said, they did not fulfill their own side of the bargain.
Yeah, but if you say they didn't fulfill their own end of the bargain, and you said over, what, 90% of the people there were hired, so does it mean that, what, 89.9 or 87% of the other people were paid, and then those few were not paid? So those kind of narratives, it leaves people wondering how you came to that conclusion.
Chamberlain, people that are hired come at different appearance fee. The miscreants, usually the appearance fee is higher than that of the normal gentle ladies and men.
Why is that?
Probably because of the hatchet job that the people that engage them have assigned them to do.
So politicians pay those who can foment trouble than those who are decent.
There were enough security agents at that venue that day. At both, from what I heard, at all entry points, there were security agents there. And to an extent, people were thoroughly screened and searched.
Yeah, but Mr. Johanna, help us understand this. You're suggesting that the appearance fee for the thugs and those who foment trouble is higher than those who will go in there decent. Why is that the case? Why do they pay those who foment trouble much more? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I kept getting calls, calls kept coming in. So
okay, so go ahead if you heard the question. Did you hear it? Go ahead then.
Please say again.
I'm asking you, when you say that the appearance fee for the thugs are higher than those who are gentle, so politicians encourage violence?
Some politicians still encourage violence, while some have still moved on. And PDP are very good at that. If you can remember, during their time from 1999 to 2015. Worst situation have happened at this. It is our party now that is copying some.
All right, gentlemen, we need to hear from both of you. As we wind down on this, we need to hear from both of you. Now, INEC is concerned. They've summoned, from what we hear, political parties concerning the peace accord that has been signed, so that they don't make nonsense or rubbish of that accord, the peace accord that was signed, because it's yielded fruit, as they say, as we also have reported, over time. Now, what needs to be done? Starting from you, Mr. Jacob, what do you think needs to be done to ensure that politicians stick to what they have agreed to, a peaceful conduct of elections, and ensure that the messages that they send drills down to supporters such that they conduct themselves decently all the time?
Let me just say this, Chamberlain. Look, political violence usually is the last ditch effort by persons who believe they are losing and who think they can force their opinion or their position on others. Because if you are winning elections, for instance, you will be the last person that would like violence to take place. And we had an example of that occurrence in 2011, 2012, when Goodluck Jonathan won the election. The people who started violence in Kaduna particularly were protesting against the victory of Jonathan. And they went after all known PDP stalwarts inside the metropolis. And that violence certainly spread throughout the north. And we had the cantankerous statements from all the APC leaders at that time. And they have carried on with that tradition in all their politics. And I'm very happy that my brother is giving insider information as to how they recruit troublemakers, that they even pay them more than those who are attending the program. This is very crucial, and I think the security forces should take advantage of this very vital information to find out who normally recruits, who normally pays. Because this thing he's saying, I've been national legal advisor. I'm not aware of situations where you go to recruit staff and pay them higher than those who are coming for your own program. What is the intention? But as a former PRO, he is giving vital information as to how they do their own thing. And it should be instructive for INEC to take advantage of this information, for the security forces to take advantage and investigate, because this is from inside, and he knows what he's doing.
All right.
For me, I may say that we don't have knowledge of how this is done.
Okay, Mr. Yohana, we're asking about peaceful conduct of politicians, their words at every political rally. I did say that INEC is concerned. They've asked different political parties to show up and so that they can all talk about some of these things. What would you suggest be done to ensure that there's always that peaceful conduct of rallies and people are matured about their rallies?
My advice to my fellow politicians is desperation won't take us anywhere, because a lot of politicians are so desperate to win elections. That's where they employ all kinds of means and tactics. And that will not help us, because we need to have a country first before we will win elections and govern or legislate over citizens. Moving forward, politicians should guide their supporters, their followers, that violence will not take us anywhere. And Chamberlain, it will interest you to know that if you see how the principal actors conduct themselves, when they want to sit down for a cup of tea, you'll be surprised at the kind of things that they say during rallies and how they conduct themselves when they sit catching lifestyle. So I employ supporters to look at their principals, how they hobnob with each other, the cordial relationship that exists between them when they are having their conversation at the top. That will help the supporters and the followers a lot. And like I said, we need to have a country first. And violence won't take us anywhere. Rather, it will deteriorate the security challenges we're having now. Because with what has happened some few days ago in Kaduna, I can assure you that a lot of people will be skeptical coming to rallies, even if something is there.
Is that not what they wanted to achieve?
Say again?
Isn't that what those who send the thugs usually want to achieve?
Yeah. Look, it's within them. Look, Chamberlain, there are things you don't know about PDP in Kaduna. They already have a lot of issues. There are different camps. You have the camp of the former governor, you have the camp of the former vice president, you have the camp of
yeah, I think
the disgruntled ones that lost out in the primaries.
Okay.
So
this
is what is throwing up now.
So
that's why you see that
in helping those who like to get to the bottom of the matter to ensure that they don't engage thugs when they go out for this kind of campaigns.
Are you referring to the relevant security agency or the politicians?
Yeah, just hang on. So when those thugs are engaged, do their leaders, the leaders in the political parties...
Why are they engaged?
Pardon me, just a minute. So when whichever political party engage thugs and pay them much more than those who are decent, do you think that those leaders in those political parties, perhaps those who are high, if it's whoever engages them, do they speak against them hiring those thugs? Are they usually aware of it, or do they gloss over it? What usually is the scenario from what you know?
Chamberlain, some politicians, that's their specialities. And some political parties have that record of inflicting violence on their political opponents over time. Thank God our party has helped in curbing this violence to an extent. You can attest to it. Coming from 1999 to date, the level of violence is dropping gradually, and we're hoping that as we continue ruling this country, one day violence at campaign rallies or political gathering will be history. So, and we will not relent in telling the youths, because most of the people that perpetrate this violence are youths, because they have the numbers, they have the strength. So we will not relent in telling them that, look, violence will take us anywhere. Calm down, we know there are challenges. You people need jobs, you don't have jobs, and this extra energy you have, you want to dispense it somewhere, but violence is not the best way to dispense this your energy. So like, let me tell you, it's work in progress, and we all have a stake in the Nigerian project.
Okay,
we all have a stake. So working on them to cut down the level of violence is work in progress.
All right, so we need to wrap up now. Mr. Jacob, is your party, or are you aware, is your party in receipt of any invitation from INEC about addressing political violence and adhering to the tenets of the peace accord?
The peace accord, yes, we did.
Okay, I think we lost Mr.
You are
Jacob.
aware.
All right.
Just like I said.
Okay.
Hello?
Go ahead, please, in conclusion. Go ahead.
Okay, just as I said earlier, if we had plans to cause violence, we would have come to that stage with our arms up, like they do in their own party. But we didn't have, and we didn't plan to do it. Like you said, we had a lot of youth there. If we were interested in violence, there would have been an armed group.
All right, Mr. Jacob,
So
we have to thank you very much indeed.
There's
some interference, which is distorting the message you're trying to pass across. But we have to thank both of you for coming on. Mr. Mark Jacob, former National Legal Advisor of the People's Democratic Party, as well as the immediate past Assistant Organizing Secretary of the APC, Samuel Yohana. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. And we do expect that there will be a lot more peaceful conduct and narratives for each political campaign, all the rallies, as it were. All right, so that said, we've got some messages coming through from you out there concerning what you heard us discuss today. Now, this one coming through from Samuel. Samuel says, talking about this topic which we just discussed, it's quite intriguing listening to the former resident electoral commissioner analyzing the recent electoral act signed into law. It raises hope to the common Nigerians and established that the will of the people shall prevail. My fear or reservation is, how can this tracking system function effectively in remote areas where there is no network or internet service?
So questions remain. I mean, certainly we will be posing the questions in circumstances where we're able to pose them. But at least they say that 2G network is prevalent almost all over the country, and that in whichever place where there is no network, after you know, the collation officer is finished, that he or she has a duty to proceed to where, you know, where he or she might be able to get network, and you know, INEC officials will be able to receive it before he or she gets to the next collation point. So I think factoring in some of these, you know, potential challenges that could prop up in terms of how they're arranging logistics. I'm looking at this one now from, who's next now? Henry Okeke says, from all indication, INEC has made tremendous technological advancement that is capable of guaranteeing free, fair, and credible elections. However, the vulnerability of the entire electoral process is dependent on security. Therefore, to be completely independent, there must be a special security unit statutorily attached to INEC. So who knows? It might be something that they might be thinkers. They have been thinking about it, that maybe INEC should also have its own security unit. But some people will say, you know, that's duplication of duties.
And what's going to happen to that electoral offences tribunal if it becomes law? If that bill becomes
big
law,
ifs everywhere, Chamberlain. Yeah. Big ifs. But that's where we'll have to wrap up today. I do not know if there are more tweets, but thank you so much for watching. Oh, yes, I see tweets there.
Yes, indeed, Mark, but this one is from Pastor Low Alpha Cross, and he's talking about political parties and their anxious members, urging them to study the Electoral Act painstakingly and stick to the rules of engagement, while the security agencies should be on red alerts to make arrests in view of infringement, no matter whose ox is good. So many arrests have been made, you know, from the off-cycle elections and even this one. The question is, will prosecution lead anywhere meaningful? Well, you could call this an edition of Revelations, and we do thank you for your insights and contributions via mail. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Amaya Makinde, have a wonderful day.
I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Thank you.
And I am Chamberlain, so goodbye.